Stay tuned to hear a case about how a personal injury attorney held a doctor accountable.
Welcome to the YouTube channel of Michael J. Swanson. Michael is the author of How David Beats Goliath and is the CEO of Advocate Capital. And now, here's Michael.
Dr. Edmond, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Well, look, once again, I want to thank you immensely for having me on. And again, thank you for what you do for our firm.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I were recently talking, and I love to hear the stories of cases that make a difference in the world. And you shared with me a story about a misdiagnosed medical situation. I think it was in Barnwell, South Carolina, right?
That's correct.
Can you tell us about that case?
Sure. This was it's a case that was tragic because the young lady died. It was a 13-year-old mentally challenged young lady and little girl, and she, she was not limited in communication. She could communicate, she could talk, but what this is a classic example of is the importance of listening. Don't make assumptions just based upon what you see in front of you. The physician saw a single mom and her mentally challenged daughter, age 13, and made a whole lot of assumptions that wound up costing this child her life. This girl, for probably a week before she passed, she was complaining of shortness of breath. She had her mother sitting her up in the bed so that the fluid would not collect in her lungs. And so the mother appropriately took her to the family physician's office to say, hey, my baby is having difficulty breathing. And the doctor checked the daughter out and saw that the vital signs were not stable. I mean, the respiratory rate was high, blood pressure was high, pulse was high, and sent the patient over to the local emergency room. Now, this is where it gets kind of screwy, but when she gets to the emergency room, they appropriately do a chest x-ray, which shows that she has fluid on her lungs. Her vital signs show a low oxygen saturation, meaning that the percentage of the blood cells that you need to carry oxygen to your body, the percentage of attachment was low. Normal is between 95% of the red blood cells being attached to oxygen. She was like at 90, 89, which was low.
Yeah.
And the doctors just ignored it. They ignored it. They saw her, and instead of giving her a medicine to draw the fluid off of her lungs, they basically gave her 3 or 4 liters of fluid, which essentially drowned her. She sat there in the emergency room and drowned on her own fluid over the next hour or two. It was crazy. And you ask yourself, and again, this is an emergency room, and when she showed up, they were very clear about the symptoms. It was clear about the objective findings. But this ER doctor, for some reason, I deposed him. I said, doctor, what in the hell were you thinking? You got this woman, you got all this young lady, you got all this objective data. How in the hell could you wind up giving her more fluid knowing that you have clear signs that she's in fluid overload? And she said, well, I thought that she was mentally retarded or mentally disabled. And I thought she had anxiety. I said, do people with anxiety have oxygen saturations of 87? And that was it. So this is a lesson to everybody, again, and I'm just going to tell you from a consumer's perspective, when you see the objective data, press on, don't take no for an answer, ask for a second opinion. Yes. Because this doctor got locked in on one diagnosis, which was anxiety associated with somebody being mentally disabled, and wound up killing this child.
Oh, tragic. I've been to a lot of plaintiff lawyer offices visiting clients, and I've never been to one that does not have a box of tissue in the conference room where you meet with families where you have to listen to stories like this. And most people can look the other way and not have to worry about it and not look at the news and hear the stories of tragic problems like that. And so thank you for being willing to not just hear those stories out from those families, but to fight for them and to make a difference in the medical care in our country to get doctors like this corrected or out and hopefully get hospitals to train folks better. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, look, you're very, very welcome. And again, in this case, We took this case to trial. We struck a jury. And then once we struck a jury, they wound up paying this woman her money. All right. And when I say her money, showing accountability for a child's death, they paid a significant amount on this case.
Right. And people think it's about the money, but would that mother willingly go through that again for the money?
Absolutely not. And I'm just going to say this: in America, the currency of accountability is money. We don't live in, Babylon back, 5,000 years ago, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. We can't go and kill the emergency room doctor's child. The currency for accountability is money in the United States, and defense lawyers and insurance companies don't pay money when they're not wrong, when they don't believe that they have more exposure and that they haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Doctor. We appreciate the work that you do. Keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Send your questions or comments to Michael at mike@howdavidbeatsgoliath.com.